Hello, YouTube. My name is Plazukas, and today's video is going to be on the Acolyte, Star Wars, Episode 1. And let me just say right off the bat, the first episode of this show was very competent, was well directed, well acted. The visual effects are some of the highest I've seen in a Star Wars production. And I would score this an 8 or 9 out of 10. However, I looked at some of the reactions to people who have been covering this game negatively. And listen, I'm not here to defame anybody or suggest that they don't have any reason to doubt a Star Wars production, because I have doubted a Star Wars production. So I'm not going to suggest that there are nefarious people out there, although there are. But I cannot do that. I can't do that for two reasons: for defamation reasons and for intentionality reasons. I can't speak to their intentions. I can't speak to their heart. So I'm not going to do that. But I will have to call it out for what it is. Because after the first episode and the second episode dropped, you no longer can spread the propaganda. The show is out there for people to digest, to consume. And from someone who has been critical of many of the Star Wars productions, not finishing Ahsoka, did not like Boba Fett, hated the third season of The Mandalorian for the most part. I don't have that same feeling for this show. I think the premise of this show, I think the setup for this show is very good. I think it's actually Star Wars. I think this is what you'd want to get into for a good and evil story and talking about the Force, the dark side and the light side of the Force. I think they go there with this episode. I do not think that it is boring. Maybe if you are a Star Wars 4 through 6 enthusiast and that is your constitutional foundation, maybe, because this has more roots to the original trilogy. I know obviously it's backwards in some cases because they came out after the prequels, because it has more setup, it has more story, it has more trying to expand the universe a little bit, trying to get into and divulge that the Jedi are not as good as they appear, potentially. And I think that story is complicated. I think that story is worth telling. I think that story is accurate to the lore. We can see that through the various struggles with Rey or with Luke. And obviously we see it with Anakin. This is Star Wars. This is a story worth telling. And in the case of Acolyte, yes. And I think their messaging, I think the director, I think the actors, again, they come out and they say these things, and it's very heated, and it's a very political, complicated time. And they come out and say these things about women, and it's not George's vision. George doesn't have to have the vision. Like, they don't do themselves any favors by speaking to the press and talking about a narrative of, the quote unquote woke agenda, okay? And yes, there's diversity in this show. And yes, predominantly female. But everyone that entered the screen was well acted. I mean, this is probably, I would say, the top 3 best acted Star Wars productions I have seen. Now, I've watched Tyrone's video, and Tyrone is now connected to Nerdrotic. He's connected to all these people who are fashion on Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, right? There's this whole connected universe on YouTube now that essentially just leverages their popularity, leverages their brand, leverages their content creator to bash Star Wars, okay? And they're not going to say they're going to do it just on principle, or just because they're going to do it because of inside information, because of this leak and that leak. But listen, okay, it's gotten out of hand. It's gotten to the point where it's kind of obvious, although I cannot say that unequivocally because I can't speak to their intentions and for defamation reasons. I cannot tell you that they have a bad intention in mind. I have to be very transparent and I have to be ambiguous, because if I were to kind of like pinpoint what I thought exactly about some of these individuals, then yeah, it would be bad for me because I can't presume, I can't assume, and I don't know what their true feelings are. So I'm going to have to go that they're just basically using what they hear, and I don't know where that sources are coming from. I don't know how accurate they are. I think they've kind of been accurate to a certain point, but now everybody's filtering on and trying to be the first to cover this news for popularity reasons or for an agenda reasons, and then it gets covered by people like the Acolyte or Tyrone Magnus. But his episode 1 review is actually kind of ridiculous. I mean, this show, season episode 1, it can have its criticisms. I'm not here suggesting that just because I like it, that it doesn't mean that everybody else is going to like it, okay? I will say that this has been a trend for the Disney Plus series. It's too short. I think it clocks in at 37 minutes, and then I just looked at episode 2 runtime, and it's like 32 minutes. Like, it's too short. These have always been too short, and if you're going to give us 8 episodes, then give us 6 episodes, make them longer, because it's uncalled for when all the other, TV production or publishers like Netflix, Peacock, Paramount Plus can give us 45, 42, 48-minute episodes. It's not it's no longer acceptable. And that is the criticism I can give to this show. But that's it. First episode was fantastic. It's a great setup. I don't know where it goes from here. I don't know how much they get into the woke agenda. I don't know how much they deal with love triangles and all this stuff that could just be like freaking overly pushing your face and very badly done taste wise. But this first episode is not boring. It has a lot of intrigue, has a lot of mystery. It sets up things perfectly that you would want. So all I'm saying is that content creators will do things that serve them. If they are the new negative space, if their job is to bash Star Wars and that's what makes them popular, if that's what makes them money, they're going to do that. They're going to find reasons to do that. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case with the Acolyte, and this is only episode 1, so it could go bad. But you know what? There's a lot of bashing of X-Men 97, and I think now that it's done, and the writer and the director and creator who got fired, that actually did happen, has now gotten, his well-deserved respect. And there was so much bashing of the MCU. They call it the MCU in the Nerdrotic universe, okay? In the cinematic universe of Nerdrotic, they call it the MCU and Disney Star Wars. That is meant to be a negative, okay? But just like X-Men 97 and now the Acolyte episode 1, I have to admit, these are 2 of the best productions I've seen in those universes in a very long time. And they're telling very intriguing, very compelling, very adult-oriented stories that I want. And I can't speak to anybody's intentions, and I don't want to reiterate it anymore, and I'll end this video now. But you know what? Maybe we're at a tipping point. Maybe we've been at the tipping point, but now maybe it's the tipping point of the tipping point. If you're just sitting there listening to whatever everybody says and you're just taking it in and you're not going to ever, try to figure it out for yourself or try these shows out, because right now you're not going to be able to know to try them out. They're going to try to dissuade you even before the show comes out. Then you know what? We've already failed as a human race. I I think the first episode is great. The criticism is it's too short, which is why I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10 because of that. It may go down to 7 because it's too short, but it's most likely an 8 because it was well acted, well shot, well directed. The cinematography and the visual effects are fantastic. The action is not slow. The opening action scene in this episode was fucking fantastic. But I digress. My name is Pazuka. If you like this content, like, subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.